Is that where I'm sitting? Am I right?
Can you just sit where the fucking...
I'm sitting here.
Look how naughty kid you are.
I'm sitting here.
But you're a nightmare in school.
Yeah, obviously.
Standard.
Obviously.
Standard.
Because just gobby.
Was ya?
Always
Was you one of those little
back.
gobby kids?
I was gobby as fuck.
Was you? Was you quite academic?
If I applied myself, but I didn't really apply myself.
They didn't.
Because I was too busy, like, being off in a band. I joined a band at 13.
Too busy.
So I was like, fuck that shit.
Too busy giving blowjobs around the
Rock. Rockstar.
That too.
That too.
Yeah.
Now we've all been
Were
there.
you good at school?
You could have given blowjobs.
I'm great, I am. Was I good at school? Yeah, I was.
You behaved yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I behaved myself. I wasn't like
Well, put
one
it
of the
so-
naughty kids.
Yeah, but define.
I was disruptive.
Oh no, I wasn't that.
And like, yeah, I was gobby, and a lot of teachers would send me out the room.
I got bullied at school, but then I just got picked on for like not being the cool, not being like the cool kid, like not fitting in with most of the.
Oh, I
the
definitely
nonce.
wasn't cool. Yeah, they tried to bully me, and then I punched one of them one day, and then they stopped bullying me.
Yeah, that's pretty much how mine ended. And then I got picked on for doing karate, and then they were like,
Karate Kid. And did you hit one of them? Is that
in
how
the
it
end,
ended?
yeah. So in the end, like, you used to get into fights and stuff at school, but you'd shit yourself. And then there was this one time where this kid said something in class, and I just fucking erupted, and I was like, "Come on then."
And it stopped after
I was
that.
like, "Come on then."
I punched Daniel Holt in the stomach.
Yeah.
Winded him. Couldn't stand up. Couldn't breathe for the rest of the day. I think he might have gone home, and then they didn't bully me after that.
Strange how
They
these
used to
things
call
shape you,
me
innit?
Papaphili hippopotamus.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Lie.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Or Greek freak.
the Greek freak.
I'm damn right on the Greek
Damn,
freak.
I'm Greek freak.
Or Lydia Chlamydia.
Lyrical geniuses.
I know,
These kids.
these kids are good. Yeah.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Perk+Pace podcast.
Hi. I'm here, I promise.
I'm
Welcome.
So
Sorry.
sorry guys, we are
And
professional.
Scene.
Today we're going to talk about what is it? The pause. We can edit this out. It's fine.
What the fuck are we going to talk about?
No, the pause that what?
The pause that rocked the world.
The pause that fuels progress.
The pause that fuels progress.
Today we're going to talk about the pause that fuels progress. So anything to do with recovery, overtraining.
Rest days.
Yeah, rest days.
Taking them. When to take them.
Yeah, so it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, man. Why did we decide to do this one? Do you remember the conversation?
I think it was off the back of the last pod where we were talking quite heavily about just
Fitting it
training,
into your
fitting
life.
it in.
Yeah.
And I think, hopefully people will resonate, but one of the biggest things that a lot of people do is overtrain.
Absolutely. He's talking to the cat. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and also, like, it's really, really, we get surrounded by this a lot in, like, the fitness communities that we're in, that whole, like, go hard, go home mentality.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not training hard, what's the fucking point as well? Yeah. Okay,
And it's
cool.
all over social media as well.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, it's all over social media, but also, I feel like those people, or at least the athletes that I follow, are taking rest days. It's just they're probably just not on social media talking about the rest
smart
day.
ones are taking
Of course
rest
they are.
days.
If they're performing at the top of their game that consistently, of course there's an element of rest and
100%.
recovery. Yeah. Right, well, where should we start with that?
I know you had a few questions around training.
I think, like, because I obviously come at it from a real point of view of, like, the real world of, like, factoring in rest and stuff. And I know it's important, but I guess maybe I would look to you to kind of bring I say science for want of a better word, the science of it, or like why we rest, why we deload, why is that important? Yeah, I mean, taking it, why do we have to rest? Why is that so important?
Where do we start? Where do we start? Well, in layman's terms, a deload is just like an intentional reduction in training volume, pretty much, and a reduction in intensity. I think that if you've got a good plan, going back a step, there is like the science and the research around, especially for people like that's in gen pop, general population, that every sort of 6 to 8 weeks probably you should have a deload or a taper, and they work in unison, but they're two different things. And
I definitely don't know the difference.
Yeah, so with specifically a deload, so you'll go through, like, you hear people say training blocks. So I don't know if you've seen, I put it on social media quite a while ago, but like in layman's terms, when you're looking to get to like said outcome that's up here, your training should look like this, where you go through a block of training, you create a stimulus, and then you recover and adapt, and then you go up to the next level of the game, and then you go again, and you go up to the next. So it should, instead of it looking like this,
Yeah.
which most people think progression should look like, it should just look like this, like steps.
Okay.
And then along that you have your, there's loads to think about this. I'm simplifying the hell out of this,
Sure, no, but
right?
that's useful.
There should, it depends on your training history, your age, and any concerns you've got, injury, etc. Some people, or the common theme is that you just train, right? So I want to get faster at a marathon. I want to do run a fast 5K. I'm just gonna train for 10 weeks and I'm gonna get my fastest 5K PB. Not the case. It doesn't work like that, because that's how you get injured. That's how you get things like hormonal imbalances as well. Because when you look at training on a whole, what is training? If I was to say to you, what is training? I'm not putting you on the spot, but if I say to you, what is training?
Well, it's stress, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's stress on the body.
That.
Yeah, no, sorry. I nailed it.
Come on, act like you don't know.
Okay. It's going to the gym and it's throwing weights around.
No, it's not. But yeah, so it's a stressor, right?
Yeah.
So we are putting our body through an incredible amount of stress to get a different stimulus, to recover, keyword, to recover and adapt, and then you almost like hit a new level of the game, and then you go again. So you create a new stimulus, etc., etc. So a deload is just a planned reduction across a training block. So you might do 6 weeks of, training modalities, no matter what it is, whether it's strength work, you can mix modalities, you can do all the fancy things you like. But then when you get to sort of 6 to 8 weeks, you usually put in what's called like a deload. So you just reduce the training intensity and volume. You allow for adequate recovery. You allow for things like just mental recovery as well, because it takes a load on you going through weeks and weeks of just hammering yourself. You recover, you adapt, and then you go again for the new training block, which is the progression, the progressive overload, etc., etc.
And that looks like, say for example, in a session I've had 4 sets of 5 squats.
Yeah.
It could be 3 sets of, I don't know.
Yeah, it could either go up in reps.
Yeah.
You could go down. You could do things like cluster sets. You could go up. There's loads of different. You could work on the eccentric part, whatever. It doesn't matter. You could do supersets, trisets. But
generally reducing volume, doing the same movements.
Yeah. Overall, if you look at it like an umbrella, that's. It doesn't matter what the stimulus is, whether it's you look at training sets, the volume, the intensity, whatever. It's the actual work itself as a whole that reduces to give that, in layman's terms, to give that recovery and adaptation, and also like the psychological refresh, which is what most people need. Now, the difference between that and say a taper is like almost like a performance tool. So if you're getting ready for, let's say, said race or event, you would have your same training block that leads you hopefully to this peak where you've had your strategic deload, so you don't overtrain, overburn out, whatever. And a taper week, I always describe as just like sharpening your axe or sharpening your knife, revving your engine. So let's say, usually lots of different things that can add up to this, but in layman's terms, let's say you're like a week out from a race, just like we did with High Rocks or whatever else. You would keep intensity high, usually, and reduce volume. So you'd maybe drop down the days that you train. You'd keep the intensity high, usually about 3 or 4 days out. So you're still revving that engine. You're still creating the stimulus, the central nervous system. Then you have your small taper. You sharpen the knife. Then you go into race day and you should be feeling good.
Shortening sessions.
Yeah.
Okay. And my follow-on question from that is then, because I know I have been familiar.
Can I just say something else?
Yeah.
You can also use a taper as a strategic deload. So from what you've heard, you're probably thinking, well, okay, well, a taper is just a shorter version of a deload. Yes, it is. But let's say if you're working for a longer period of time, or you won't need necessarily a huge deload. Let's say you're type A personality. I'm not saying that type A people don't ever need deloads. They absolutely do.
They just don't want to.
Yeah, but because we're working with different personality types, etc., you can use strategic tapers, which don't take away too much of the said effect of I'm still training, but gives you the necessary outcome and adaptation that you need in recovery that's just enough to keep them going again. And
That's
keep them
interesting,
going.
like knowing the person you're working with in that scenario then as well.
Big time. Big time.
My follow-on question from that though is about, because I have been familiar with the term deload for years, for as long as going back as doing like powerlifting training.
Yes.
It was like, oh, we're on a deload week this week, so and I could see that it wasn't as hard.
Mm-hmm.
But then eventually I got to the point where I was training hard enough where I was saying things like, oh, I'm ready for a deload. Like I could feel that I was ready for that to happen.
That's a good sign.
Because I'm getting fatigued, I'm maybe failing reps, things like that. So, but my following question is, what happens if you ignore that? If you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to keep going that hard because my ego's got in the way. So I'm thinking specifically to when I was weight training and I was like, oh, I'm regularly squatting this much. And all of a sudden next week it was way less. If your ego gets in the way and you go, fuck it, I'm going to carry on, what happens?
You get injured. You overtrain. You burn out. You have all the classic symptoms that we spoke about in the previous podcast where your sleep is gone to shit. And don't forget, I'm really simplifying this. Like, there are so many different things that could, be happening in your life that could affect your sleep and stuff. But when you're causing that much in the right way havoc on your body and you don't do it right and you don't have the right recovery methodologies in there and deloads and tapers and whatever, then you will get injured. You just will. But people don't, because they're not educated on how it works and they just see it as, well, it's just easy, right? We just go from A to B and we train as hard as we can and I run as fast as I can and as hard as I can and I end up running a PB. Doesn't matter.
But it can like almost like on accident happen sometimes though,
yeah,
can't
of course
it?
it can.
And I think that's then why it kind of feeds into the go hard or go home thing because there are success stories off the back of that where it's like, I absolutely flogged myself and I got a PB out of it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, to answer your question, that's how you pick up things like injuries long term. And
that phrase overtraining though, I know it kind of like comes in and out of fashion and like being like, I think at the moment I've seen a lot of stuff on social media about people being like, overtraining doesn't exist. Like, yeah, there you go, your face straight away. It's like, I've got something to say about that. Like, what do you think overtraining is?
I think overtraining is a lack of adequate recovery, really, in no short term. I think you can go too hard too soon. That's a classic sign of overtraining. I think that, go on.
Do you know about it when you're overtraining? Like
me personally, or with clients, or?
Oh, I mean, like I think I meant more generically because I think that I've heard people say, "Oh, I've overtrained," and I'm like, my perception of it is that when you are overtraining, bad shit happens to your body.
Yeah.
And like you say, you're not training, and everything fucking hurts. You get injured.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you look at, if you've got a coach or something, that's why you should look at like the frequency of sessions, the time you're spending in the gym, the intensity, how you're managing intensity and load throughout the week. If you're absolutely spanking your clients 3-4 days a week, I've said it before, random 15k runs, squats after you've just ran a ultra or something. Do you know what I mean? It's everywhere. And then these people are either really pissed off that they're not progressing. They're still thinking to themselves 12 months into a coaching program, why am I not getting any quicker? Why am I not? Well, the proof's in the pudding. And obviously as a coach as well, you can monitor things like rate of perceived exertion, which I know is a classic one that a lot of people use. I use it myself with clients because yes, it's as simple as saying, okay, well, out of 10, how hard do you find this exercise? And if let's say I get to 4 weeks in to a new block and my client's like, I am fucking flogged. Like, you're killing me here. Everything here is an 8 to 9 out of 10. I'm like, whoa, let's pump the brakes.
Yeah.
So that's an indicator for me to jump in, just like, shout out Max for helping you with your recovery.
Yeah.
Probably did around like, look, we need to really peel it back so you don't overtrain, so you don't injured, and now you're in a position where you potentially run soon. So
I mean, like massive props for that. I think I said like
it's keeping an eye out for that.
I went in with a niggle, and I expected him to say, "Oh, you're going to have tendonitis," but he straight was like, I think this might be a bone thing.
You've got to manage the effect of across the course of the weeks and the blocks and etc. So, but the RPE one is a good one.
Okay, but like the RPE thing is interesting because I think that requires you to have quite a lot of self-awareness.
Yeah, it does.
So what about, I realise this isn't what we said we were going to talk about today, but like for people who, well, first of all, what is RPE? Because I understand it. I don't think Ian really still understands what RPE is.
Revs per
revs per...
Engine.
Revs per engine.
Because my understanding, should I tell you what my understanding of it is? So it's rate of perceived exertion.
Exertion, yeah.
And somebody once described it to me as it's a scale of 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about how many reps you've got in reserve. So it's not like how hard is it out of 10,
Yeah.
which I guess is still a useful
It's
tool.
still the same sort of tool, yeah.
But actually, it's like, say, for example, you just did a set of 3 of something. If that is the max and you couldn't have got a single more another rep out of that,
that is a what?
that's a 10.
There you go.
You have maxed out.
Yes.
9 RPE means you potentially had another rep in reserve.
Yeah, you're literally 95%
Yeah.
of your 1 rep max.
Yeah. So when you start getting down to like 6 to 8, which is where I know a lot of useful work happens,
Yeah.
that's when you've got 3 or 4 reps in reserve.
Yeah.
That's the area that I find really difficult to monitor,
gauge
though,
off, yeah.
because that difference between around about 6 and 8 or 9
Yeah.
is quite a blurry sort of.
Yeah. It does your training experience does make a big difference, obviously, because you become more aware of your body, and especially if you're new to the gym. If I say to you, okay, Bob, out of Bob,
Love Bob.
love Bob, out of 10, sometimes because the goal of a coach as well is to make this as easy as possible.
Yeah.
You don't need me to sit here and reel off the fucking encyclopedia of the strength and conditioning manual or whatever, because one, you don't give a shit. You just want an outcome, right? But if I say to you, RPE me every fucking exercise in your program, you're gonna be so overwhelmed. You're gonna be like, Matt, I haven't got a fucking clue.
Yeah.
But if I say, look, for the first few weeks, especially if you're new to the gym, let me know how that session was.
How hard it is.
Yeah,
at.
I just
Which is still a useful scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they usually most people can go, do you know what? Okay, roughly it was like a 6 or 7. It was, some of it was fairly hard, some of it wasn't, etc., etc. You can use other tools like obviously heart rate as well. So when you're, let's talk about running, for example, or conditioning, if you're programming modalities and training sessions and you're asking for an RPE but they're finding it hard to judge, well, we know that we can go off heart rate through your chest strap or your wrist watch, whatever, although it's not super accurate, but we can use those modalities. So if you say to me, Matt, that training session was like a 6 out of 10, I'm absolutely fine. Oh really? Well, your heart rate says it's 198.
Yeah. That ain't a 6.
Bollocks, mate. Yeah, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
That's
or
it.
you've got a really high tolerance for like hard work, which is weird miracle.
Either your heart rate strap is broke, or you're full of shit.
Yeah.
So,
I do all of my running when I was running was pretty much heart rate based.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting better at it now because it was a new thing to me, but was finding it really hard to judge that perceived scale.
That's why, like, when people try and perceive zone 2.
Yeah.
Unless you're an experienced runner and you can be like, just look at your heart rate on your watch and your training zones, that you can go, okay, well, I'm in zone 2 now because my heart rate is 130 or whatever. But if you haven't got Scooby-Doo and you get programmed a zone 2 run and you come back to me and your heart rate's 170, I'm going to be like, I don't think that was zone 2.
Yeah.
But the perception of it to somebody who's new, they'll go, oh yeah, but that wasn't flat out. Yeah, I understand that. But what we're after is that real low perceived effort of zone 2.
Yeah.
So that's just like things that you can do to pull back on.
What do we think about like if someone doesn't like, this is me pre-injury, I would do things like this where I'd be like, I wouldn't really want to take a rest day. I didn't really feel like I needed it, so I'd go and do something zone 2. Is that okay? Yeah,
it is, but and I have this with some clients, not naming names, where type A personality, love to train, etc. Find it really hard to take recovery days, which is normal. There's nothing wrong with that. But then it's being smart around, like I say, reviewing the week, seeing where they're at, having consistent comms with them, but without doing a disservice to yourself and just doing whatever they want to do, but doing what you should be doing for them or prescribing for them. You can put in obviously lower intensity workouts just to give them that scratch that itch for them, but you can also look at smart tapers and things. That's why I said to you at the start of the conversation, you can put in what's rather than overwhelming clients and going, right, I'm going to give you a deload week, and as soon as they hear deload, they think recovery, and they see recovery and they go, I can't fucking not do anything.
Yeah.
So putting in those smart little tapers where you wouldn't even have to tell the client that they're going through, a strategic taper, because it's not that big of a deal. It's just like, look, we're gonna pull back on a few reps, or we're gonna pull back on intensity for this session, because I want you to just gain that little bit of recovery and adaptation without feeling like you're just sitting on your arse all day. Basically it.
That thing about the type A personality, I've actually written down type A personality up here because I think that's really interesting. And I'll link this to business because I've got this mentality that like nothing happens when you're standing still. So like
everything happens when you're standing
right, but that's what I'm saying, is like it's completely the opposite.
This
is completely opposite, and there was a switch of me understanding that, because in business I feel like if I'm not stretching myself, I'm not pushing myself, if I am too comfortable, nothing is happening, and I'm going to blink and in a year's time I'm going to be in the same place. It is not the case with this. Biologically not the case.
You are not getting any stronger, you're not getting any faster doing the work.
It's the recovery.
It's a recovery.
Why is that?
Well, because you're doing the damage in the gym.
Yeah.
And your body then needs to adapt. You need to recover, for your muscles to get more dense, to get stronger, all this sort of, science behind it. Then that's how you get fitter and stronger and adapt, and you're able to do more work ultimately. That's exactly what it is.
The thing.
It's like baking a cake. It's like baking a cake and putting all your ingredients in your mixing pot, and then leaving it and not putting it in the oven to rise, and you're sitting there going, why the fuck is my cake soggy? Or like, why am I getting injured? Why is it not standing up by itself? Because you're not fucking recovering, mate, that's why.
Well, like so the way I got around it is I had to start I love that analogy. Yeah. The way I got around it though is I had to start seeing. So again, speaking to that like type A business type thing, I'd start seeing the whole week or the whole block as the full strategy. So like, there is a strategy for business, which involves marketing, operations, like all of this, blah blah. But like, and so the rest day is part of that strategy. And just like I wouldn't pull out any of those strategies from the business.
Why do it yourself?
Right. I was like, so this is the end goal. The end goal is wanting to do this event or whatever. And each of those rest days along the way are an immovable part of that strategy. And there have been some practical tips that I can come back to about how to mentally deal with taking rest days, but as soon as I had that switch of it being part of the broader picture, I've suddenly found it easier to deal with. Did
you notice when you didn't prioritize recovery that it did affect your performance or your sleep or your mood or whatever?
I think that no matter what, I always had a rest day each week. I don't think Max
just one.
Yeah, Max wouldn't let me get away with any less than that. And then that other one was like some kind of really low aerobic zone 2 type thing. So
active rest.
Yeah, I don't think I ever got to that point, but I was mentally struggling with it. That was the difference. Like, I was taking a rest day, but I was hating it. I used to say to I feel like such a slug, or like, and then I had this like, oh well, I can't eat that because I didn't train today, and that's bullshit. Bullshit. But then getting injured completely changed my relationship with rest.
I'm going off topic here. Well, not really, but I know you're big on journaling, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that has helped? Because I know obviously something that when you do, you get better at, and do you think that helps with you?
It's one of those things. Well, you know what? Yeah, probably it does.
Because I think the reason I ask you, because I know a lot of people will be struggling with exactly what you just said. It's not that you have to take time off; it's the mental toll of taking said time off.
So there's two things there. One is that that's one of my biggest tips of like how to get better at being okay with rest, is to find other. Sorry, so that, again, the type A personality thing, we always need to feel like we are working towards something, or that we've got a mental purpose for the day. Yeah. So it's funny that like then the training becomes really, really wound up in part of that purpose. So whether people think this is a hack or toxic, whatever, you find other activities that are still giving you mental purpose.
Stimulating, yeah.
And one of those things very much is journaling, and like having that mental awareness and mindfulness. But then journaling also very good, because one of the things I do is check in with how my body is feeling. Wraps up in injury a lot more, and that's become a lot more prevalent in that. Is you're writing down, how do I feel today? How does my body feel today? Because as someone who has notoriously not been very in tune with my body.
Mm.
I know you've said before, I think because you trained from such a young age, you
Yeah.
are pretty in tune with your body. I definitely haven't been. And now it's like my body is telling me things all the time, and journaling gives you the opportunity to almost sit and listen to it and start, oh, well, I feel this, I feel that, or even just mentally, how do I feel? The thing as well is we talk about stress, and the reason I said stress and the reason I said that so quickly, how much it annoyed you, was I was talking with somebody about it recently.
Yeah.
And that your body cannot differentiate between the different types of stress. So whether it's like
work stress,
work related stress or training stress or whatever, it doesn't know the difference. So that's when I start, and this conversation came up because I realised that as I was journaling, I was still feeling like a bit panicked from the day, or like my heart was still going.
That's mad.
It is mad. And like, it's funny because I wear all these different devices and watches, but they all tell me the same thing, which is that like I've got these high stress levels all the time. Like, we laugh about my Whoop. It's like, oh, you had a high stress day. I'm just like up here all day. Ian's like, what were you doing? I was like, I was just at work. I was just like, and I don't feel stressed. That's just how I operate.
Yeah, I completely get it.
So like again, the mindfulness of sitting there and being like, and I'm controlling my breathing, and I'm sort of like recentering myself.
Yeah. It's a lot of avoidance, isn't it? Really, if you're just in that consistent high state of, I've got to have my foot on the gas all the time, and that's a deeper conversation because it goes on around like, you know, how we live in a world where everyone's expected to be smashing it, and you've got to fucking do everything. You're just good at suffering. That's what it is. You're just good at suffering. Like,
and wear it like a fucking badge.
Yeah. Like, I'll out suffer you. That's the...
But I think the thing that I think is worth mentioning is that if I'll use myself as an example, if I ran my business like that, as in never taking a rest day, never stopping and never reflecting, never thinking was it the right thing to do,
such a good point,
I'd be bankrupt.
Yeah.
I'd be crying in a fucking walk-in fridge somewhere, which I do.
It's in Digborough.
So like, you know, like seeing it as, like I said, this broader strategy, stopping, thinking, checking in with your body.
Yeah.
That's my analogy for that.
Definitely. And I think fueling right as well. That was the other one I was going to mention. Especially like, this could be another podcast in itself, but like just fearing calories and things like that. And I know we've spoken about it in previous podcasts, but there's just a lot of like hormonal disruption around you not fueling and then caning yourself.
I mean, how deep do you want me to go into with
that? This is it, yeah. I don't know.
Because I actually got like pretty much as close as you can get to being diagnosed with coming out of reds. Because I was not from an overtraining perspective. We'll go right. Which one comes first? Is it overtraining or is it underfueling? That's like which lever comes first.
Chicken and egg. Yeah.
But like I was not fueling for the training that I was doing. Yeah. Hormones going haywire, periods all over the place.
Missing periods and stuff.
Missing periods, but then when I then suddenly stopped training to that intensity because of injury, I was getting a period every 14 days.
Wow.
Because your body's like, what do you want me to do? Oh my god.
Yeah.
My skin went crazy, like I was a teenager all over again. I had spots over my forehead. You know, I got all the dermatitis and eczema back on my hands. Sleep went to shit. And I speak to like a qualified dietitian about it who has experience of working with women who have reds, not that she's like a hormone specialist. And then she sent my bloods off to get tested, and she's like, yeah, you know, you've got high cholesterol, which we often see from people who are recovering from reds. The periods mean you're recovering from reds. All of this. So it's like, that's a wake-up call in that, okay, I might have been doing everything right training. I was like, I did not get injured from overtraining, but did I get injured because I wasn't fueling right for what I was doing? Yeah,
which led you to then not being
quite
able
possibly.
to train.
Yeah, quite possibly. So now it's like that thing about calories and that toxic thing. I'm hoping this is going to change my relationship with that forever.
Amazing, yeah.
Because the other thing that happened around like because my interpretation of reds, relative energy deficiency in sports.
Yeah.
I associate that with like really skinny, lean people. But she was like, common misconception. Actually, one of the biggest things is inability to change your body composition I was like, I definitely got to that stage.
You spoke to me about that before.
Yeah, definitely. Where I felt like, I know because I'm obsessively tracking everything I eat, I know that I'm not overeating.
Mm-hmm.
So why is my body not changing? And she was like, yeah, your body, and I don't want to claim for a second that I can verbatim say what she said science-wise, but it's something about the way that your body holds on to fat when it is effectively in that state of being underfueled.
Yeah, it's like shock. It's like fight or flight.
Yeah.
Fight or flight.
All comes back to cortisol, right?
Yeah.
All of it. But yeah, being injured has taught me more about my body than the best week of training ever did. Like listening to it and understanding it a bit more.
I'm going back to what we said earlier, but I've even had weeks where I have trained maybe once a week, and I don't tend to fall into the trap, but I feel guilt. I feel like I should be training, blah blah blah, and then I'll go and do a training session after having 5 days off. I feel like Superman because you're just like, it just clicks and you're like, oh, what? I haven't lost all my fitness. I haven't lost all my strength. You just don't realise it until you really lean into it and you have the right support and structure and all this sort of stuff. Because you'll just be like a deer in headlights.
Do we have any like more tips for people who can resonate with this? Oh, I really struggle to take rest days and deal with it. Do we have any more like practical tips how to do that? Mine are all mental. Mine are all like
I was just about the ones that I've got down here are like monitor your mood. Yeah, I mean, if you want to get really geeky, you can look at like your resting heart rate, monitor that, because if it's consistently high, then your body's in a state of stress. Same thing with like your HRV.
Yep.
So if your HRV is absolutely tanked and it's super low,
that's a sign of something.
Yeah, and it's a sign for other things like you're gonna get sick.
Yeah.
You're gonna get if you're somebody who is, you're training like a madman, you're getting snotty colds every 3-4 weeks. You're under fueling, your mood's shot to shit. These are all fucking red flags to be looking out for.
Well, I was about to say, because not everybody tracks their heart rate and their HRV and stuff. So I was like, so dive more into the mood thing.
Yeah.
Like, is that what? Because the sleep isn't great, your energy levels are all over the place.
Yeah, all of it, like irritability, mood swings. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that training is that, but if I was looking at an avatar where it was like, and I didn't have the data or the support to look at the things that we've just spoken about, if I am training and that's a big part of my life and my mood is out of whack, my sleep is shit, I'm consistently getting ill, of course it could be something else. But if you was to just look at it black and white and be like, okay, well, hold on, they're doing everything they should be doing, are you taking enough rest days? Do like a checklist, like take yourself to the mechanic, you know what I mean? Like do a checklist and say, okay, what's my training like? When was the last time I took a rest day? Oh, fucking 8 weeks ago. Okay, Matt, I think you need to like pump the brakes for 2 days. Are you eating enough? Did you eat, like, for me, I know we spoke about like being in tune with my body and training for years and stuff, but if I have a session where I know I am not performing to where I should be, yes, there could be a multitude of different reasons, like the sleep bit, etc., but usually go down the checklist, like, okay, well, what's my sleep been like this week? Mental checklist, what's my sleep been like? What did I eat today? Fuck all. Okay, well, that's red flag number 1. Rest day, sleep, other things like how many intense training sessions have I had this week? Oh, and I'm going to go do a fucking 4th one where I'm absolutely killing my central nervous. Maybe I need to implement more zone 2, more active recovery, more light stuff. Maybe I need to have a chat with my coach to say, look, the conversation we had at the start about perceived effort and stuff like that, and how not to get overtrained and whatever. It's doing stuff like that and thinking about these mental checkpoints and markers, not just being like, okay, it's as black and white as I'm not good enough, or oh, how did I pick up this injury?
Yeah.
Well, it didn't come out of nowhere. Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, like it's all the mental stuff, isn't it? Yeah. And I think that there's some certain things that I say to myself. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just very passionate about this. No, this is why it's so important to have a coach. Huh. I know. I'm not just saying it. Yeah. It's so true. Because you can say these things out loud to somebody who knows what to say back. Yeah. Well, I mean, like I had this conversation. Well, I did have these conversations with my coach a lot. But like the things I say to myself. Yeah. In those moments, though, is that actually, because for me it's a lot about like I like to feel like I can do hard things and overcome hard things. So I'm like, actually the running hard or the lifting heavy isn't the hard bit.
Nope.
Like the sitting still is the hard bit. So it's almost like this is the hardest it's going to get, Lydia. Like things like that. And then sometimes the most productive thing I can do today, or like the most productive thing I can do this week, is nothing.
Yeah. You're really right. It's, you know, it goes way beyond what we're talking about, because it like life is just, you know, if you're not killing it, then you
what's the point?
What's the point?
Yeah.
Like, that's what.
But like, would you agree that rest isn't slowing down?
No, it's part of your training.
Yeah, it's almost like it's the key to the next level up.
Yeah, like you've got to treat it like a training day.
Yeah.
Just because it says rest, treat it like a training day.
Maybe we should just maybe rest needs a rebrand.
Yeah, rebrand rest. Rebrand rest.
It needs to be called something that sounds like super cool.
Yeah.
We'll work on that.
Adaptation day. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like make it sound cool.
Yeah.
Like, but that's how you got to look at it. Like it's part of your training. It's not like it's not the black and white as okay. These 4 days I'm training, but these 2 I'm not. No, everything is part of the plan.
Ian, do you take rest days?
I'm taking one right now.
Don't get me started on this guy.
What do you mean?
How's your back?
Resting.
What did you do this morning?
Went for a run. What did I do yesterday? I rested.
Did you?
Do you have a problem taking rest days? You don't.
You liar.
No, I don't.
I'm gonna call you out, liar.
I don't actually. I think I've got better with it.
Solid input, thank you.
Yeah, great chat, mate.
Ian's half asleep. Are you okay then? It is warm today.
It is warm, and he raided the fridge earlier. Literally just like a giraffe with his head in the fridge.
I mean, I need to go to the gym, and
yeah,
it's not rest day for me.
nope.
We need to work on that rebrand. I'm down with this.
Adaptation day.
Is that what you think it is?
I don't know.
I might ask ChatGPT.
Adaptation day. It's not got a good ring to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Something to do with next level. Unlocking the next level. There's just lots for people to take away, and it does sound very complex, but trust me, it can be made simple.
No, I like that you simplified it down. Like it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's you know. I sound like I'm running for president, but you've got to make it for real people.
No, I think I come from a place now where I'm a lot more in tune with the body and I understand it a lot more. But if you're not there yet and that feels like a bit of a jump, and like, oh, I don't know how that feels, just trust the process, because 3, 4, 5 years down the line you'll be at this point where you'll be saying, oh no, I understand RPE and I understand how my body feels, and
it'll become like second nature. And nothing's ever perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect training week ever. You might think there is, but there isn't. And if you just keep yourself consistent with that thought process and just think, I say to everybody all the time, just win the day. Just win the day. I had a client say to me the other day around, I just fucking haven't trained for the last 2 days. Work's been crazy. Okay, no worries. I'm not gonna fucking, Don't get me wrong. I'll tell you off if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing training wise. That's going to have a detrimental effect to the end goal. But reality is, if life gets in the way, you can just get back on the horse. Just win tomorrow. Forget everything else. Just win tomorrow, and then it will get you back on track.
And if there were a perfect week, it would definitely involve rest.
Obviously, and coffee.
Thank you everyone for listening and watching to this episode. If you can resonate, if you feel like you understand this and we've been talking about you today, about this rest stuff, let us know. Pop it in the comments, because it's really good for other people to see. You're not alone, and we all share these feelings. So thank you all for listening, and we will catch you next time.
See you later, guys.